Yo guys, Jim here from DrinkABeerandPlayAGame, and today I'm going to start my look at the ColecoVision games. So the first game up is going to be Buck Rogers Planet of Zoom. Originally released to arcades in 1982, this Sega-developed game was a pretty popular title for its time. It was ported to just about every console and home computer of the day. There are a lot of different versions of it, some better than others. Coleco's it's okay. It's one of those forward-scrolling rail shooters and is known to be the inspiration for Space Harrier. As far as the graphics go, they're decent. You get a couple different backgrounds and a couple different enemy types. The cool thing is that the enemies will kind of change their orientation as they're coming in and out of the screen, so that's a nice touch. The sound is a bit of a weak spot. There's no music, and you're going to hear the sound of your gun firing a lot. Outside of that, there's kind of a generic, like almost whiny sound in the background. It's a little weird to describe, and I know it doesn't help that you're hearing all the RF radio static from this recording, so that's what happens with these old systems when you don't emulate. As far as control goes, it actually controls pretty well, even with the ColecoVision's crappy controller. The player character moves around the screen pretty well, and the firing isn't that bad, even with the mushy action buttons on the ColecoVision controller, so that's a definite plus right there. As far as the gameplay goes, you have a set number of aliens in each screen that you're trying to kill, and it moves on to the next screen and the next round and so on and so forth. It's decently fun, but honestly for me it kind of got boring fast. Like I said, it's a fun game. If you can get your hands on it, I think it's a good addition to the ColecoVision library, but there are better ports such as Coleco's own Atom computer, and especially the 5200. This game, like a lot of ColecoVision games, the scrolling's pretty choppy, but on the 5200, silky smooth. Either way, if you can find this, definitely give it a go. Next game up is Carnival, or just Carnival. Anyway, it was originally released to the arcades in 1980, and is another one that was developed by Sega. It came to the ColecoVision in 1982 as one of the early launch titles. It's a fixed shooter, and it's famous for being one of the first games ever with a bonus stage. Unfortunately for me, I never got to see it because couldn't figure out how to get out of the level. I don't have any instruction manuals, and I was a little too lazy, but either way, it was eventually released to the 2600, the Atari 8-bit computer line, the ColecoVision, like I said, and the Intellivision. The goal of the game is, well, it's a shooting gallery, like you'll see at a Carnival. You're supposed to shoot everything and then move on to the next level and get as many points as you can get. The way that you can lose is by running out of bullets. And how you do that is by either shooting everything and not finishing the stage, or by those damn duck enemies. See, there's a couple things you have to shoot, like bears and bunnies and ducks. And the ducks, if you don't shoot them in time, will come down towards your player, and if he gets to the screen without being killed, he eats a ton of your bullets. So definitely watch out for those guys. There is actually music in the game, and it's that really generic kind of Ferris wheel, state fair kind of music. And you know what? It sounds pretty good, to be honest with you. The graphics are really simple, they're nothing to write home about, but they get the job done. The control, with the crappy ColecoVision controller, plays perfectly fine. The problem for me is really with the gameplay, because I got bored with this within like a minute. It's a shooting gallery, and maybe for 1982 or 1980 it was kind of cool, but this day and age, even with that retro appeal, there's not a lot here for you. So I've seen it at stores for under $1, and I wouldn't advise paying any more than that anyway. I wouldn't say it's one that you have to get for your ColecoVision collection, but if you see it for dirt cheap, I don't know, it could be a nice little 5-minute time waster. You can do a lot worse with $1, so why not? Either way, I'm a Sega fanboy, so, you know, it gets points there for me from that. Next up is Cosmic Avenger. Released in 1981 to arcades, this was developed and published by Universal Entertainment Corporation. It's a side-scrolling space shooter, basically. The ColecoVision was the only home port. So, the basic gist of the game is you scroll through 3 different worlds, it continuously loops, and the goal is to survive and score as many points as you can. Graphically, the game is... You know what? I actually like the graphics. Sure, the sprites are pretty simple, but it's a nice kind of colorful game, which is, well, so far a decent change of pace, but I like the use of color, I like the way you can really make out what everything is, and all three of the different levels look really different from the one before, so that's a good touch. Actually, the scrolling in this game for the most part is impressive. Outside of scrolling between the different levels themselves, the in-level scrolling is pretty damn smooth, so that's very good for the ColecoVision. Sound-wise, it's alright. There's no music, but you do hear a lot of spacey, early 80s, late 70s kind of space sounds that you'd hear in video games, but unfortunately most of it gets drowned out by the sound of your shooting, especially of you dropping bombs. So you get to hear that sound every time you do it. It gets a little annoying, but it never takes away from the gameplay at all. The control's kind of a problem. When you have the two action buttons, one of them shoots in front of you and one of them drops bombs. Honestly, the mushiness with this game of the buttons, it didn't really work out that well. This is one of the ones that I plugged in a Sega Genesis controller and I had a lot more fun. So using the B button, it shot the front shot and the bomb at the same time, so while it kind of killed the sound of the game for me, it made it a hell of a lot more playable and fun. The game actually has some varied enemies. You have to worry about land and air targets, and really both of them can kind of be equally troublesome. Some air targets have missiles that will shoot smaller missiles at you. Missiles will be shooting up from the ground. You get a spotlight that finds you and starts shooting missiles at you. You have the different UFOs in the air. It's kind of a hectic game, and it really keeps you on your paces. Difficulty-wise, it's not the hardest game in the world, but when you put it up to the higher difficulties, the enemies are definitely a lot faster and a lot more aggressive. So, you know, there's a nice curve there. It's a lot for everyone here. Personally, this is one that I had a lot of fun with. It does get repetitive pretty fast, but you know what? It just has a certain charm to it that made me keep coming back to it. This is one of those ColecoVision games that I'm glad to have in my collection, and it's one that, you know what, I would recommend to a lot of people. If you have a ColecoVision and you haven't played this yet, check it out. Alright, the next game up is the Pac-In game. One of the most legendary games of all time, it's Donkey Kong! Donkey Kong was developed by Nintendo and originally released to arcades in 1981. It came to goddamn near everything at the time. And you know who got the rights to distribute it to home consoles? That's right, Coleco. So it became the Pac-In game like I said, and it came to the ColecoVision in 1982. So since Coleco had the rights, they were cheeky little bastards and decided, hey, we're going to make the other versions of the game suck, so you have to come and buy ours to get the best version of it. And you know what? It worked for them. It sold over 6 million copies and it made over 153 million in profits. Now, how it sold 6 million copies of the game while only selling 2 million consoles, I don't know. What can I say? Fact-checking and keeping from back in that day was a little iffy. I'm going to guess that it's 6 million copies total for Coleco, not just for the ColecoVision. Anyway, this is Donkey Kong. It's got 3 of the 4 levels. It's nearly arcade perfect for the games that you get. Graphically, it's friggin' beautiful. It's very detailed, it's nice and bright and colorful, it looks exactly like the arcade. If there's one little knock I'll have on it, it's missing some of the cutscenes of Donkey Kong falling, so that's kind of lame. Outside of that, the music, it sounds pretty goddamn close to the arcade to me. It sounds really good. You have the jumping sounds of Mario, the sound with the hammer, all that good stuff. Even with Coleco's crappy controller, the game plays perfectly fine. Sure, with the Genesis controller, it's a little better and a little smoother with the jumping, but you know what? Packed in as is, and after 30 plus years, it's still a perfectly fine playing game. This is freaking great. All in all, I mean, there's probably no reason that you shouldn't have this for the ColecoVision. So, if you have a ColecoVision, just do what you can, go get Donkey Kong. There's enough copies of it out there. Alright, the last game up for today is going to be Donkey Kong Jr. Released to arcades in 1982, this is the follow-up to the insanely popular Donkey Kong. This time around, Donkey Kong Jr. is saving his dad from Mario, so a little bit of role reversal. It's got different, more complex puzzles, it's definitely a more difficult game overall, and you know what? It's another great port to the ColecoVision. The game controls pretty well with any controller. I didn't really have that many problems with the ColecoVision controller itself, though to be fair, the mushiness of the action buttons seemed to be a little bit more of a problem in this than the original Donkey Kong. I guess because the jumps in this are a lot more precise. Graphically, the game looks great, once again. Nice, bright, colorful, sprites are well detailed, it's a good job. So 3 of the levels from the arcade are in here, and they're pretty good conversions. Sure, once again, like the first Donkey Kong, you're missing some stuff, but what you get here is a good package. Gameplay is as fun as ever for Donkey Kong Jr., and once again, you do kind of get some of the cutscenes cut out, which, again, is disappointing. Overall, though, it's a really fun game, and I would consider it another must-have for the system. I mean, you can't really go wrong on retro consoles with Donkey Kong, unless you get it for the Intellivision and Atari 2600. Anyway, when it comes to the ColecoVision, you can't go wrong with Donkey Kong, so definitely go get it if you have this system. That'll do it for today, guys. If you like this video, leave a like, put a comment down below. Did you ever play these games? Let me know your experiences with the ColecoVision. Tune in next time where I go over the next 5 games in my 15-game collection. Till then, cheers, guys.